Char Margolis, Char Communications Incorporated, and CharVision LLC do not endorse or offer for any purpose but entertainment the views of any guest or other expert on CharVision or UBN.
I knew things before they happened from the time I was a child. At the age of 8, I saw a spirit at the foot of my bed and didn't know what it was. And in my 20s, I finally realized I had a special ability that could help others. I have learned that love never dies. There is a spirit world that can communicate with us, and we all have the gift of intuition. Join me, and together we will explore the possibilities of the unknown from beyond and more. This is CharVision.
Hey everybody, it's Sunny and Char. Well, last week I talked a little bit about when people commit suicide and what happens to them and what happens to their soul, and like not everybody goes to a great neighborhood when we cross over, no matter what. So I'm not saying that people who commit suicide go to a, quote, bad neighborhood, but the point is that most people who do have to come back and do it all over again. And today I have a guest who's returning. Her name is Gail Trauco. And Gail is a nurse. No, she's an advocate for patients, for people. Gail, exactly what you're a grief mediator, and you help patients navigate through the red tape of the American healthcare system. God bless you. God bless you. But I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy to meet you in person. You're so lovely.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Yeah, and so tell us, remind us a little bit again of what you do.
I'm a patient advocate, which means that patients can have any kind of illness and have problems getting their insurance approvals for medications, for CT scans, getting an extended hospitalization, for an inpatient admission, for example, behavioral health, for an attempted suicide, or drugs or alcoholism. So I help patients who are unable to get approvals with that get it. And then if a family, if a patient has end-stage disease and we know they're going to pass away, I help them through their hospice journey and help the family find the right attorney to make sure that the estate's in order, and after the person expires, to help the family, lit through some of the hurdles of unpaid hospital bills and things that person probably wasn't able to take care of, before they expired.
Yeah. So, wow, that's a lot. What you do is a lot. Today is Friday, June 15th for people watching on YouTube, and it's that this is the time, like if you're watching it 20 years from now, this is when Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain committed suicide within a week or two of each other. And so, Gail, you're going to help us understand about suicide and being an advocate for people who are, and where people can get help and how they can get help. Although I do have the hotline here, the suicide hotline. I just want to give out real quick. It's 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. So tell us about how you can, or what are signs that we can look for if there's somebody who is depressed, who wants to commit suicide?
Well, one of the characteristics for patients, for a person who may commit suicide, is they do not have a medical diagnosis of depression or anxiety. Many people who want to end their life don't have a medical diagnosis at all. They feel like they're a burden to society, to their family. They may have gone through a very bad ending, a relationship, financial stress. It's different for a patient with a terminal illness, and we see lots of those patients who want to commit suicide.
Right.
The CDC released new statistics this week. From 1999 to 2016, there was a 28% increase in suicide in the United States.
Wow.
123 people per day commit suicide in the U.S., about 45,000 a year. It's the 10th. There are diseases that the Centers for Disease Control rank. Suicide is ranked 10th for the reason of death, cause of death in the United States. People may become very withdrawn. If you have a friend that you're used to seeing out have coffee at Starbucks once a week, or you see at church functions, Saturday night, dinner, And all of a sudden, they've gone through, you may know of a loss or a trauma in their life, and suddenly you don't see this person. You really need to check in on them. One of the best things that we can do to help one another is to encourage and to listen. Patients that have been diagnosed with any type of a mental illness, depression, anxiety, those disorders, it becomes a label. It's our scarlet letter in America. You know, you're almost like, oh, they have an infectious disease. I don't want to associate with that person anymore. That's the last thing that person needs. They need the engagement. They need the support around them to help them as they're going through this journey in their life. And that's what it is. It's a journey. And certainly there are people that have organic chemical disorders in the brain that require physician management, and they'll probably be on medication their entire life to help monitor their behavior.
Okay, so what you're saying is probably one of the biggest problems in our world is mental illness.
Yes.
And how do they decipher between mental illness or somebody who's never came out to look mentally ill and then they just want to commit suicide? I mean,
there's a difference in those two, and I'm going to call them patient groups since I'm from the healthcare profession.
Please.
A person with a diagnosed major depressive disorder, you'd see it in somebody's medical record, the 3 letters, MDD, major depressive disorder. Well, as a nurse, I know that I should be looking probably for some medications, looking through that patient's medical record when they're coming to clinic that day. Their physician certainly is going to ask them questions. How are you feeling? How are things at home? And usually people will talk to their physician. They may talk to the nurse, whoever's bringing them to put them in a room. People that don't have that diagnosis of this depressive disorder or schizophrenia or some of these very extreme medical conditions that may be a patient population to commit suicide. And Anthony Bourdain, he wasn't labeled as a depressive person. You know, I read a new article today that said, after his first divorce, he was suicidal all the time. It was an article in the New York Times. It was published yesterday.
People rave about what a kind, good-hearted person he is. I personally have never seen the show. Have you, Tony?
You loved his show. One of my sons is a chef, and we watch Anthony Bourdain. He's a household name in our house.
Yeah.
And the feeling that you have from him with every show that you see, you walk away with something, probably part of him as a person. He always had a story, the way he interacted with people. You would never expect to see Anthony Bourdain commit suicide, just like Robin Williams did.
I wonder if any of his loved ones had any sign of it at all. I mean, I know he had a girlfriend that was not exclusive, but it was a girlfriend, and his mother's still alive. It's so hard to imagine somebody that old losing their child.
I have no concept. My children are all still living, around home or close to home.
Thank God.
And what a loss for the families and the friends that are left, and what a loss for the chef, his best friend, that found him in the hotel that morning.
Horrifying.
What a devastating life trauma for this person
to
have to experience.
And a lot of people say that when people commit suicide, it's selfish, but he couldn't help it, could he?
No, they're not being selfish. Actually, for a person to commit suicide, it takes a great deal of courage because there's going to be pain. However, whatever their choice is to end their life. And when you're talking with a group of patients who have had suicidal tendencies, and when you look at the commonality in the conversations and in clinical data, they don't say they want to die. They say they don't want to live anymore. So if there was a way for...
Wait, that's profound. Say that again.
When you're looking at clinical data with patients who have had suicidal ideation, the commonality among many of them is that they don't want to die. They don't want to live anymore. So there's a big difference.
Well, the other thing that I was so impressed with about you is that you're also a psychic medium, and you're an intuitive medium, and you use it mostly for your work, with your being an advocate for patients. But do you like when these people cross over, because you and I can talk about this, when they cross over to the other side, it's like got to be a shock, like, oh, I'm not dead. It's not ashes to ashes, dust to dust. My energy is still alive. My spirit is still alive. Uh-oh. Now what?
When I do a reading for someone, my Uncle Joe committed suicide when I was about 10 years old.
Oh, boy.
Growing up in North Carolina. That was the first suicide I had ever been exposed to, and it was one of my uncles. Well, when I was at a John Holland workshop.
Okay.
And John Holland was doing readings, and my Uncle Joe comes through.
Oh, boy.
And, was like, I'm sorry that I wasn't there when you were growing up. So those entities have messages that it's very important for those families, if they have a desire to know, to receive those messages and allow that spirit to communicate. Because once they're out of this physical body and no longer dealing with these earthly pains, I'm going to call it the mortgage, the ending the relationship. Our society puts so much stress on everybody to be a certain way.
Yeah, even like with the Hollywood and having to look a perfect way or what they think is perfect or whatever. I mean, people get caught up in it.
Everybody's getting caught up in it. I feel a lot of stress. When I go to a hospital, I have to wear certain scrubs in some places. Maybe I have an allergy to the detergent. Well, I go buy that color scrub and I just pack it in my suitcase and take it. So it's when that soul crosses over, there is peace for them finally at last. And I'm sure that I feel like when I see that, there's a joy for that soul. That whatever this burden was that they could not resolve.
You mean when they commit suicide?
Yes. That there is a joy for them. They don't cross over into that celestial plane where I call it glory. They don't cross over into that glory because as a soul, they still have to learn many lessons before they're ready to go on where the temples are for them to study on the other side.
Right. So they need to, I believe they need to come back and do it all over again till they get it right.
We're all going to come back and do it all over again.
Well, not unless you've completed your mission.
Oh, I'm not done
and
with
you
mine.
end up at the right hand of God. Some people, I think, I just read for a gentleman, and his wife was lovely, and she came to one of my intuition classes, and I really, really liked her. And I was shocked because I was reading for the husband, and she crossed over. And I was doing the reading, and I started crying because she was just such a lovely, good person. I said, I don't think she's got to come back anymore. And he goes, I know, she doesn't. Because all she did was charity and kindness and helped students and children, and that's all she did with her life was give back.
It's when someone has committed suicide, that for me, the loss, yes, we've lost this person. But they actually used their free agency to make a decision that they no longer wanted their soul to be on this plane. So if it's a medical disorder, if they had a mental illness, that they were dysfunctional enough to make that decision to end their life, then we have to be very forgiving and not hold a grudge against this person that has chosen to exit this physical plane.
It's also important for all of us to forgive anyway, because if you don't forgive, it can fester inside of you and make yourself sick. You have to learn to forgive.
Well, there was a nurse that committed suicide that I worked with, and this has been within the last 5 years, and this is in a small southern town that I visit about every quarter. I go there for business reasons. And she had no children, married to the greatest guy you could imagine, beautiful home, new car, and she was taking numerous antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs and wrote a suicide note. Many suicides don't leave a note. They won't leave a note. The people that feel the deepest burden will leave a very detailed suicide note. So this nurse had left a note, said, please don't tell her sister that she was committing suicide, because she knew she had taken enough medication to get in the bathtub. She was going to fall asleep and drown under the water, which is what happened.
Oh, geez.
And her husband found her.
Oh, that poor guy.
So it was. But she left the suicide note, very detailed, not to tell her family. She had already begun living out of this body. In an emotional state. She was already ready to exit, and she planned what she was going to do and how she was going to do it.
I have to tell you a story. I have to tell you a couple stories. So, and I said this last week on the show, but I'm just going to say it again. I was on Dr. Oz, and on the first half hour, they had people who had near-death experiences, and two of them were like, they saw the white light. They saw the angels saying, "Go back. It's not your time yet." But there was a man who was an atheist, and who I guess wasn't the nicest person. And he had a near-death experience. And he went to a place that was not pleasant. Now, he didn't commit suicide. This is just a soul that just wasn't the kindest, compassionate person at all. And he went to a really dark place. And he saw demons, and it smelled like garbage, and it was horrific. And for the first time in his life, he called on Christ. And Christ appeared, and he said, but you asked for this. This is, because, so I guess that people, manifest things the way that they think and are. And so, what is it? So you sow, so shall you reap. Yes. I think it's in the Bible, but not that I know the Bible. And so he said he would come back, and he would come back with a believing in God and believing in helping others and kindness. And he, came back. His body, his heart started beating again. He came back to earth. And from then on, he believed in Christ. So, I'm not saying that people who commit suicide all go to a dark place, but people who don't commit suicide can go to a dark place if their deeds are not pure on the earth.
Yeah. There's certainly that place that's, I'm LDS. I'm a Latter-day Saint.
Okay.
And so
I don't know what that means.
I'm a Mormon.
Oh, you're a Mormon.
I'm a Mormon.
Okay.
So I very much follow the teachings of the church.
Okay.
And modify it if I need to. And, there's the terrestrial kingdom is one that's not in the presence of God or whatever the divine entity is on the other side. So that is the darkness for those souls, people who committed murder, people who have done horrific things to people, child abusers, pedophiles. Right. They are certainly not going to live in that light unless they have changed their soul.
Right. And, that's what this man did.
So he had a second opportunity. God gave him a second chance to come back and make it right. So I don't believe that all people that commit suicide go to this place of darkness.
Right. I agree.
That soul has to learn and evolve before it's ready to go into that divine presence.
Well, the other story that I said that there's two stories, I personally knew somebody who had a near-death experience and had the same experience this guy had.
Wow.
But when she came back, she still was playing the victim and hated everybody and everything. And I believe she was possessed by an evil spirit. That's what I believe. And I also feel that sometimes when people do commit things that are not pure and honorable and healing, that they're being possessed not only by their negative thoughts, but energetically, because we live in an energetic world and a physical world. I believe energetically they're not totally protected, and that's why I always encourage everybody to do a white light of protection and pray. There's nothing more important than prayer and protection and love. And loving yourself.
I agree 100%. And when people have committed suicide or have that desire, that's such a loss.
Such a loss.
Imagine that devastation. It's like being in the desert with no water.
The other thing is this person that I knew would go into trances and demons would speak through them. When she first started doing trance, they didn't. But afterwards, they did. That's why people have to be careful with Ouija boards and seances and even people who read cards. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not right, but you always want to make sure that whatever's being delivered, the messages, it's from the highest energy of goodness, love, and God. Because otherwise, people can be fooled easy. And, excuse me, somebody must be talking through me, so sorry. and I also believe that one of the reasons that people are so skeptical of psychics is because I know that somewhere it says there will be false prophets. Yes. And so, but I always say there's a lot of psychics now. There's a lot of psychics out there. And I feel like that we need to, consider the source. Is the person pure? Are they honest? Are they well intent? Are their intentions well? meaning well. I mean, it's really important to have that positive, healing goodness about you if you're going to do this work. And you, I can tell, have that goodness about you.
I work probably 80 hours a week, and probably 40 of them I don't get paid for. A lot of patients that have had a devastating illness or families, they don't have money to pay. So I have 5 students that work in my advocacy office in Middle Georgia, and they're all college students, and they're the people that chase down the medical bills, that screen. You know, initially when we're looking for law firms, they gather the medical records, and so I've tried to keep the business cost affordable for patients to handle, and then the attorneys that certainly I network with to help if somebody has a legal need. But I think we're all put here for a purpose. And once we find what that purpose is, we're supposed to do it 24 hours a day. Everything that I do now is focused on how to take the message forward. How can I help more people understand grief and loss? Anybody that's attempted suicide and succeeded, what were they grieving? What was that loss that brought them to this place of devastation and hopelessness?
And when you do this, do you talk to the families? Do you talk to the friends? So can you give us an example of one that's happened?
Well, I have a Healthcare 911 video out where a husband passed away. He had malignant melanoma. And the wife attempted suicide. She took the pills that hospice didn't pick up. And she attempted 2 suicides within less than a year of each other after the husband had passed away.
Oh, boy.
So, but approaching her once she was discharged from the behavioral treatment center I'm like, well, why did you try to commit suicide? Just a point-blank question. Not hostile. I wanted to know. And she said, well, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said, that's a fair response. Trying to, all the unpaid medical bills, how are you going to pay the mortgage? She couldn't work. She has a disability. And so it's these very blunt, honest, non-hostile conversations that need to be had more so that people understand we're all going to experience loss.
Right.
But it's not our time to cross over into the next plane. We're here to continue our life journey.
And then the people who are left behind on the earth, they feel guilty or they feel like it's their fault?
They feel guilty for the medical illness. Did they not take them to the right doctor? And it's in the event of a suicide, one of my best friend's son committed suicide. His dad didn't think he was depressed. He just gets a call one day that his 35-year-old son has committed suicide.
Oh, boy.
Out of nowhere.
Wow.
And so I read for that family. It was probably a year after the son crossed over. And his son said he was under a lot of stress at work. He worked for the railroad. I kept seeing trains. I said, okay, I didn't know the son personally. So, but he had lost his mom. And he wanted to be with his mom on the other side. She had passed away, within probably 24 months. And 24 months later, he committed suicide. He wanted to be with his mom. Children. There are children who have committed suicide. One recently, 6-year-old, committed suicide walking out in front of a train. Her mother had passed away from a critical illness.
Oh, my.
And the daughter wanted to be with the mom. So this 6-year-old was capable of making the decision. She knew it was going to be a painful death, and she indeed walked out in front of a train, and so that she could be with her mother on the other side.
Wow. Did you read for them, or
no? I didn't. I have not
just,
read
where,
for that.
Where did they live?
Oh, I can't. That I can't disclose.
Yeah.
But this
okay.
was
okay.
This
No
is
problem.
U.S. based. This
now,
is all U.S. based.
Are these some of the advocates that you're being
some
an
of the
advocate
families
for?
that I work for, or that come to my office for assistance. I'm very surprised sometimes when they come in, the reason that they're there and how they found my name or how they find my website. It's almost like there's an angel that guides them and says, this is the right person to help you with the problems that you have at hand. There are many medical advocates in the United States, lots of nonprofit organizations to help people with clinical diagnoses. The National Suicide Prevention Foundation has a great website, lots of useful information on it, 24-hour hotline for people to call if they feel at a loss.
The suicide prevention hotline? Yeah, that's 1-800-273-8255. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who are patients and that they're sick and they don't have anybody to help them. And we're just going to take a quick break, and I want you to give us some help to help those people who really need guidance, because it's so important to have an advocate when you're sick or your loved one's sick. So we're going to be right back, okay? Thanks.
Hey, everybody. You probably think I only do individual readings, but sometimes I get a message for everybody. And I wrote a poem that was channeled through me, and I'd like to read it to you. It's called Until We Meet Again by Char Margolis, a message from heaven. My work is done. It's time to leave. Know that I am also missing you as you grieve. I completed my karma on the earth, and now it is time for my rebirth. I'm flying with eagles and dancing on stars. Please know that I haven't gone far. The love we have will carry us through until the day I am again with you. What an amazing journey this passing over can be. I am in good company. I know you hurt, but please trust me. Our journey together is for eternity. So until the day our souls reunite, stay peaceful and well, and use your spirit's sight. I will bring you signs from up above, a butterfly, a bird, my sign of love. Don't worry about me. I'm in good hands. Stay strong, stay positive, and continue to pray. When it is your natural day to graduate from the earth, look for me in the bright white light. We have completed our purpose, and all will be right. This is handmade. It's signed by me. It's an affordable gift for any occasion. Just go to char.net and click on store. Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's Char. Well, many of you have asked if I teach psychic intuition, and I do. Everybody has a sixth sense. Everybody has an ability to prevent problems and attain goals in their lives. And I'd love to teach you. Just go to char.net, CHARNET, and join one of my classes. And call Nikki, and she'll help you out. Remember, intuition will take you places logic never could.
Okay, so my assistant, Nicole, thank you, Nicole, for all your help today, had a friend who was denied help. And so she said that how can people who have been denied help for mental health get help?
Most communities have public programs. It's not going to be a private practice therapist. Especially if it's a younger person, they can take into consideration your income. Mm-hmm. A therapist that work for public, county, or state facilities, they work on a sliding scale fee based on someone's income. Mm-hmm. Most churches will have support groups, mm-hmm. and that's a great resource because they're not trying to push religion down your throat. They probably are counselors or therapists that work in the business world. It's very important that our communities come together to support and bring to the attention of Washington, D.C. that the Affordable Care Act shouldn't be dismantled until they have something better to put in its place. Mm-hmm. Because a patient with a diagnosis of a major depressive disorder, mm-hmm. bipolar disorder, any illness, cancer, they can't get private insurance. So with the Affordable Care Act, at least they can. And it's U.S. law that parents are to provide insurance for their children until they are age 26.
Okay.
So if parents are doing their job, somehow if they financially can do that, their children should be on some type of a private policy that they go through healthcare.gov to apply for. If a patient needs funding for a prescription medication, many pharmaceuticals companies have a patient assistance program. So when they go see their therapist or whoever's writing the prescription, family practitioners can mm-hmm. write antidepressants for, Prozac and everyday types of depression.
How do they know it's exactly the right amount? Because, it's a psychopharmacologist or a psychiatrist, it's the chemistry of one's body, and it has to be exactly the right amount of whatever it is they need or the kind they need. And sometimes you have to mix up different things to see if it works.
They do. Patients will, and they should be visiting that physician. When a physician's handing out a new antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, they probably have that patient come back in 30 days for another evaluation. How are you feeling? And the physician or nurse at that office is available. Probably somebody's on call 24 hours a day. But it's the people who've been denied that really need the support. They're already depressed or sad or whatever, wherever that emotional state is. And then somebody's telling them, no, your insurance is not going to cover this. So they may be paying insurance. Maybe it's a very high premium they pay every month, and they can't use it. Well, that's when you find an advocate to make some of those calls.
And how do people find an advocate? Like where?
Hospitals will have medical advocates on staff.
Not like you.
No, not like me. I'm private practice.
So how can people get a hold of you?
Through my website. I do a lot of lectures. I'll be at Harvard in July. I was just
Wow.
at NASDAQ. I think social media is a great place to find someone.
How do people get a hold of you?
Frontporchtherapy.com.
Frontporchtherapy.com. You guys. And then if for some reason they can't get a hold of you or they want somebody in their own hometown, they go to what?
Well, there
Their
are
own hospitals. And where are there other
own hospitals.
private advocates?
there are other private advocates in the United States. I don't personally work with any because I have staff that work in my office.
Right.
But there are foundations. They can Google therapist or counselor in their geographic area and go from there. They may ask for a zip code. They're like grief.com is Dr. David Kessler's website, who's a psychologist, and he has many therapists listed on his website, and you can search that directory by the zip code that you live in. PESHI is an organization that provides training to mental health professionals. And on their website, you type in the zip code, and it will pull up a listing of people.
How do you pronounce that?
PESI.
PESI. PESI. You can Google that, guys.
You can, Google that, go to their website, and it will there's a directory, and you just put in your zip code, and it'll come up in your area. With the internet, people have information at their tips. If it's a person that's not internet savvy, maybe a neighbor can help them search, look for what that need is. And if somebody is having suicidal tendencies, you need to really help monitor that person. It's our humanitarian job to be a good neighbor. Because if you're a good neighbor, you're going to have a better neighbor.
I saw on TV this week a gentleman who was jumping off the what's the famous bridge in San Francisco? The Golden Gate. Yeah, he was going to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he said to himself, "If there's just one person who will ask me how I am or care about me or talk to me, I won't jump." So there was a woman who said to him, who came up to him while he's ready to jump off the bridge, would you mind taking a photo of me? I guess she was from another country. So he started taking photos of her, and she kind of like lingered about, but I guess she never said, "Are you okay? How are you?" Whatever. So, cut to, he jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge. And there was a seal. What's another name for a seal?
The sea lions.
A sea lion, yeah. Sea lion that was circling around him to keep him up. And his shoes were soggy and like so heavy that it was making him sink. And the sea lion helped him stay afloat until people came to save him. And his father said, you can take this and help people with it. And I guess he's got a wife or a girlfriend, I think it was a wife, who's helping him. And it's not that he has stopped having those depressing feelings. He still gets them. But he's turned it around, and his dad said to him, you can take this and help others who have this inclination to kill themselves. And he goes to schools, and and he said every single time he's gone to a school or university or anywhere, somebody, at least 1 to 2 or 3 people come up to him and say, you know what, you really just saved me because I was planning on committing suicide. So he's dedicated his life to this, but he still has those bouts of depression and wanting to hurt himself. It's got to be horrifying to live in that with that energy.
I think it would be horrifying. I'm very fortunate. I grew up in a very poor family, and there were times when I was in college that I didn't know if I would have food the next week to eat. You know, working 2 and 3 jobs and trying to pay rent, and you know, and you look at it, and I could have easily been someone that made that choice. Poverty followed me until I was 30 years old.
Oh my!
It follows you. So the way we grow up, those living conditions probably influence many of these people that are choosing to decide to commit suicide and exit. And mine was growing up with loss. Loss, it was always, there wasn't enough food, there wasn't enough money, there was no health insurance, we didn't get health care, didn't go to the dentist. So I grew up living in the dark state that I can live on this plane. But somehow there was always a white light between me and everything else. And it was always that goal that I have to read these books, I have to pass these tests and make good grades because I have to leave this place. I call it leaving my zip code. So once I left that geographic zip code, poverty still followed me because there was nobody to help me. There was nobody to help me pay rent.
You did this all by yourself?
I did it all by myself.
Self-made?
Every bit of it.
And you have 3 kids.
I have 3 sons, and they're all graduates. One of them's working on a postgraduate degree. I have great kids. They're good students in college.
That's so beautiful.
So it's...
You know what Gail told me during the break? She said, every day when I'm working with my people, being an advocate, I cry.
I do.
Because she feels so deeply for the people that she's helping.
I do, and there's such a loss in the United States, and it can't move fast enough for our legislators and people in leadership positions to increase the awareness. One of the groups of people who are not supported with mental health services very well in the United States are our children.
Right?
Yeah. Do you know there's one psychiatrist to probably a school district in most communities? So how many people can that one psychiatrist really be of service to? Maybe there are 2 guidance counselors on staff for a high school of 500 students. How many students can they really serve in a day?
Right.
When, you know, if for sure you know somebody's coming out of the foster care system, maybe people are aware that maybe that particular student has a drug or alcohol problem that they're recovering from, or a parent in the home where they're battling one demon or another in childhood. These kids aren't getting anything extra.
No.
So as a society, we have just left them there. They are just left dwindling, you know, hanging in limbo, trying to figure out what the next correct step is.
It's frightening, but you know, you think about all the shooters. Like every week almost there's a school shooting and there's somebody mentally ill and who's wanting to hurt others. I mean, how does that get fixed in our society?
Awareness, communication, talking about it, and each of us being a better citizen and actually caring about somebody to say, hey, how are you doing? You know, I have neighbors near my office, and if I don't see one of them out when I happen to be in that area, I go knock on the door. And I'll say, hey, I was just, you know, I brought you some flowers from the grocery store.
Oh, is it
or here's
sweet?
Some herbs out of the garden.
That's so
you know,
good.
we mow.
That's so sweet.
My sons mow the guy's grass next door every week because he travels with his job.
Right.
And so we didn't know he traveled. I thought he didn't feel well. So my son started mowing his grass for the last couple of years.
You know, it's what's really haunting me are the people from El Salvador that are trying to get into America now. And now all the children are being separated.
Yeah.
I think it was like age 4 to 10 or something, or 4 to 12 or something, and they're put kind of like the guy said on the news, like in a prison almost. Although, I mean, it's better. They get to go outside 2 hours a day. They get fed, but there's like a lot of beds in one room, and Their babies, children are being pulled from their parents. I mean, there has to be a better way to do this.
There has to be a better way to do it. And
I mean,
why can't they stay with the mother? Why can't they have living quarters for the mom to be with the children?
Yeah.
Yes, they want to come to America. We're the country of opportunity. They
Right.
want to come here for a reason. So, yes, perhaps they are going to get deported again.
Right.
So why don't they leave them with the mom
Right.
in living quarters?
And they interviewed a little boy, and he said, well, you know, why did you leave El Salvador? He said, because there's bad people there who hurt people, who kill people. Little boy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrifying, and it's hard for me or anybody or us to imagine what these poor children are going through. And okay, so maybe there are border restrictions, but they can be done a different way. It can be done a humane way.
It can absolutely be done a humane way, and it's people like you, Char, and me. When I go on television, I talk about these things. It's increasing awareness. People need to email their congressmen. They need to email their senators. Mm-hmm. And I met with one of the senators from Georgia 2 weeks ago. He goes, "Do you want to address the Senate?" I said, "How soon can you get me on your docket?"
Oh, wow.
And I left it at that. I was like, "How soon can I do that?" And I think he did think I would take him up on the offer.
And
but
are
I'm
you doing
gonna,
it?
I am going to do it.
And
I don't have
what
a date
exactly
yet.
are you going to fight for?
I'm going to talk to them about health care. And some of the Georgia cases that I have, people
like
right there in that.
physical and mental
And
health
mental, because, you know, mental health services, some insurance policies don't have a mental health component.
care? Right.
So those patients are truly at a loss to go out and find services, you know, in a community. And where do you begin to do your research? You know, when somebody emails me, it doesn't take me long to find, you know, 7 or 8 places. People need to utilize their local ministers, synagogues, clergy. You know, they're the Catholic priest. One of the first counselors I ever had when I was in college, and I am not Catholic, was a Catholic priest. I just
Right.
loved this guy. I would go talk to him every week. He'd sit and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee, and I couldn't do either one. But he really helped me understand the losses that I had experienced as a child. Well, these children being separated from their parents, they have nobody that's talking to them in their language to help them with that loss. It's just a matter of food, and these are the restroom facilities, and here's your bed to sleep in.
Yeah, there's no love.
No, there's no love.
That's the problem.
That is the problem.
Because the greatest, most powerful energy in the world is love.
So, but you're sharing love with everybody
Well, I try.
every single day. And if everybody makes that effort, Neil deGrasse Tyson's tour last year, his lecture was on the cosmic connection, how we're all connected with that divine thread. So we are all connected to the other side and everything on this planet. And when everybody starts acting like they care again, things will begin to change in a more rapid manner.
But people say, oh, you know what? It's not affecting me. It's not happening to me, so I don't need to do anything.
Well, and when they have a healthcare 911 in their family, they've got insurance, they drive a Maserati, they're living in a $10 million home.
Right.
Guess who they're calling on the phone?
You?
To help them fix their healthcare
I
911.
hope you're like getting paid for all this.
Yeah, I do get paid from those types of clients.
They better pay
But
you because you're earning your money, lady.
everybody's going to have a loss, but all of us can learn to handle loss in a better manner. And we can teach people about what loss is and that it's a normal part of life. And
Right.
well, how do you feel better? Well, it's not going to be right now. It might be 3 months, it might be 6 months, it might be a year. But that feeling of hopelessness can go away. And when you see somebody isolating themselves, and if you know
Yeah.
somebody has a history of suicidal ideation,
Yeah.
it's so important to step up and be that good family member or friend. Even though you may not agree with it, maybe they're not your
Right.
favorite person, check on them, get them engaged. You know, Facebook is a great place for people to chat, you know, the radio shows that are on there, any of the shows that may air live.
Right.
You know, Hay House has a great, and I'm not a Hay House author. Hay House has a great radio network.
Right.
Lots of educational things going on. Blog Talk Radio. There's material out there if you have internet access or a cell phone. You can listen to some of these podcasts and people that are really delivering inspirational messages.
Well, I feel that you should have your own podcast, and I think that should be your next mission.
Well, I'm going to
Because
look into that.
I think that you need to do this because I think you've got so much to help people. You care so much. You're compassionate. and you're knowledgeable and you know how to guide people to the right places.
Navigating our quote system in healthcare, sometimes I have to have an attorney call an insurance company. Sometimes the attorney
you scare them.
Oh yes. That it's to touch that emotion. This is a person on the other end of the phone.
That's smart.
That is smart.
It's good to do that. It's good to scare them because then they're going to jump.
So, I have a firm in Atlanta that I exclusively work with on cases. And if it's something that I've had no luck with, they get an email and they will make a phone call.
Uh-huh.
And, it's that legal system. Well, you know what? We'll name you in a lawsuit if this patient goes home and commits suicide that needed an extension on their behavioral and patient
You say that
treatment
to
program.
them?
Of course I do.
I love this.
Of course I do. They will be named in a lawsuit. I don't mind telling them that at all. But it's a person on the other end of that phone making a
Someone should do a scripted show on you. You would be that would be a great thing for a scripted show, like a character like you that's really being an advocate and helping others.
Oh, somebody called me Aaron Brockovich one day, and I laughed when they told me that. And I said,
well, you know what? Not everybody walks the walk and talks the talk, but you truly do. And this lady goes way out of her way to help others. You really do. And that's why I feel like I feel you should be out there because we need healers like you to help the planet because our planet is falling apart.
It is falling apart, but we're lucky as mediums that we have that. Everybody has the gift of intuition and mediumship and everything.
Right.
Mine is just, I'm not afraid to acknowledge it.
Yeah, but not everybody has a pure intent like you do. And I'm telling you, I've met them, their egos, they want to be rich, they want to be famous, they're the egos. You just want to help. And anybody who is a medium who doesn't have a pure intent, you will see the karma come back upon them that they will not succeed in the long run.
Well, I've chosen not to work as a medium full time, and I continue to work in healthcare. But I use being a medium every single day.
Yep.
Every single step of everything I do.
Yep.
For every patient.
No, I'm sure you're incredible with everything you do. So, okay, so how do people get a hold of you again? FrontPorchTherapy.com.
There's a submit form on the homepage.
FrontPorchTherapy.com. Have you written any books or?
Oh, I have. All my books are on Amazon. I have 15 books on the market. I have a children's series of 8 called Emma Meets the Grief Monster. I've been meeting with some animation companies this week in LA.
Well, they will be stupid if they don't get this project going. And so
I think it's needed for kids.
What's on Amazon? How do we see your books?
Type in Gail Trauco, and my author's page will come up, and you can find all my books there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming in, and it's an honor to be with you in person, and I hope that we'll be able to meet again and that you'll be able to come back.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I'm looking for you on your own show. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean that. Thank you so much for all you do. All right, everybody. Thank you, Tony. I never thank Tony enough for everything he does for me. Thank you, Tony. And Nicole at home, you were so right. Nicole said, you should do the whole hour with her. She's amazing. And it's really interesting because there was a divine intervention thing that she had a friend who couldn't get help. What did she tell you the story?
She did. Just tell Nicole to email me. There may be, I can look in their geographic region.
I think what happened was she couldn't get help for mental health, mental health because she didn't have the right insurance or something. I don't know, but come on, everybody, we got to start helping each other. So thank you for that, and I'm sure she's already on it. So, and everybody at home, thank you, because if it weren't for you, we would not be able to do CharVision. I'm so grateful for all your emails and your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram stuff. And Sunny appreciates it too. So I'm Sunny's advocate. And remember, everybody, intuition will take you places logic never could. God bless you. Take good care.